People in Maple Ridge didn't usually stop in the middle of their lawns and stare. But that's exactly what they did the day the new neighbor arrived, because something about him made everyone look twice. And Emma Clark, she didn't just look. She froze. She had been watering the small row of flowers by her porch. When the moving truck pulled up next door to the house that had sat empty for months, she expected a family or maybe an older couple. But instead, a tall man stepped out, shoulders slouched like he carried the weight of something no one could see. He glanced around the quiet street as if he wasn't sure he belonged anywhere at all. That was the first moment. Emma felt it, the strange pull in her chest, like someone whispering, "Pay attention." She didn't know why he stood out. She only knew that he did. His name, she would later learn, was Daniel Hayes, and he was from Toronto. But right now, all she saw was a man alone on a street full of people who pretended they weren't watching him. He reached for a heavy box, winced, and Emma reacted before she could think. "Do you want help?" she asked, stepping toward the fence. Daniel turned, startled. His eyes were blue, not the soft kind, but the storm kind. Like they held things he wasn't ready to talk about. "I'm okay," he said, though he clearly WASN single quotes. Todd Emma smiled gently. "You don't look okay." That made him laugh, just a little. The first crack in whatever wall he was carrying, and that's how it began. Over the next few days, she saw him in small flashes carrying furniture. Sitting on the porch steps with his head in his hands, jogging early in the morning like he was running from something. He always waved politely, but he never stayed long enough to talk. Still, Emma felt drawn to him in a way she couldn't explain. Not attraction exactly, not yet. More like familiarity. Like seeing someone who reminded you of a version of yourself you had forgotten. So when she found him outside one afternoon, fighting with a box that had ripped open on the sidewalk, she walked over and helped gather the books, spilling everywhere. He looked embarrassed. "You don't have to, I know," she said, handing him a book. "But I want to." That simple moment, light, small, quiet, shifted something. And Emma decided to follow the feeling instead of running from it. She invited him to dinner casually, like it wasn't a big deal. "You just moved in. You probably don't have groceries yet. Come over tonight. Simple meal. No pressure." Daniel hesitated, searching her face. Not suspicious, just unsure if he deserved kindness. "Yeah," he said softly. "Dinner sounds good." And Emma felt a flutter in her chest she hadn't felt in years. The moment he left, she panicked. Why did she say dinner? Why tonight? And why did she suddenly care so much about how her house looked? But she pushed through it, cleaned the kitchen, changed her dress twice, and lit candles she didn't plan to light. She told herself she was being silly. This was just a neighborly dinner, nothing more. Still, she wanted tonight to feel different. She wanted something to start again inside her. When Daniel knocked on her door, she felt her breath catch. He stood there in a simple, dark sweater. Hair slightly messy, eyes softer than they had been in daylight. For a moment, he looked like a man who had forgotten how to relax until now. "Come in," she said. Stepping aside, he entered slowly, looking around as if he hadn't been in a warm home for a long time. "It feels peaceful," he murmured. Emma didn't say she lit the candles for him. She didn't say she switched the music to something calm. She didn't say she made the bread herself, even though she told him it was just leftovers. Instead, she smiled and served dinner. They talked more easily than she expected. Daniel told her about Toronto, how he loved the city but needed space for a while. He didn't explain what he meant, and Emma didn't push. But she noticed how his voice softened when he talked about his old apartment, his favorite cafe, the cold winters that felt cleaner than anywhere else. He asked about her life, to her job at the library, the quiet routine she loved but sometimes felt trapped inside. And as she spoke, he listened fully, leaning in slightly as if her words mattered. Something warm opened in her chest. Not romantic, not heavy, just human connection. A feeling she hadn't expected from a stranger. As dinner went on, she noticed small things about him. How he pushed his hair back when he was thinking. how he paused before answering emotional questions, how his eyes wandered to the window when the conversation got too close to something personal. He wasn't closed off. He was careful. And she wanted to understand why, at one point he said, "It's been a long time since I sat down for a real meal with someone." Emma felt the sincerity in it, and something inside her softened dangerously. "Then I'm glad you came," she said quietly. She meant it more than she wanted him to know. The night settled into a calm rhythm-soft music. Warm food, the hum of two people learning each other in the most ordinary, beautiful way. But something changed when Daniel put his fork down, his expression growing tense. "Emma," he began, voice lower, "can I tell you something? Something a little personal." She felt her heart skip. This was the moment, the shift, the opening. The thing she had sensed all day. "Of course," she said, steady but curious. Daniel took a breath that looked like it cost him effort. "I didn't just move here because of work," he said slowly. "There's something else. Something I haven't told anyone." His fingers tapped the table nervously. Emma leaned closer. "You can tell me," he swallowed, looking like he was choosing between speaking and staying silent. Like he wanted to trust her but wasn't sure if he should. But right as he opened his mouth, his phone buzzed. Loudly on the table. One glance at the screen changed his whole face. The calm he had built all evening shattered. He stood up so fast the chair scraped the floor. "I'm sorry," he said, breath unsteady. "I have to go." "I'm so sorry, Emma." She rose too, confused. Daniel, wait. But he was already at the door, apologizing again, promising he'd explain. Fumbling with his shoes like he couldn't get out fast enough. Before she could say anything else, he rushed outside into the night. His jacket remained draped over the back of her chair. His unfinished plate sat warm on the table, and Emma stood in her quiet living room, heart pounding, realizing something she didn't expect. He wasn't just a man starting over. He was a man running from something or towards something that he hadn't told her yet. She walked to the window and watched his shadow disappear down the street, swallowed by the darkness, leaving behind more questions than answers. What had he almost told her? What was he hiding? And why did the look in his eyes feel like a warning wrapped in sadness? The feeling in her chest, the one she tried to ignore, grew stronger. Daniel Hayes was not just her new neighbor. He was a man whose past had just walked back into his life, and whether she wanted to or not, Emma was already caught in whatever came next. The next morning, Emma woke to the sun spilling across her kitchen, but it couldn't warm the unease in her chest. Daniel's sudden exit the night before had left her mind spinning. She tried to convince herself it was nothing, just a man dealing with something private, but deep down, she knew it wasn't nothing. She brewed her coffee, staring out the window at the empty driveway. The wind stirred the maple leaves, and for a moment, she imagined him walking back through the gate, apologizing, explaining, laughing at some story she hadn't even heard yet. But he didn't come. By midday, Emma was restless. She kept replaying his words. "There's something else. Something I haven't told anyone." What could it be? A secret? Trouble? Or maybe just fear of opening up? Her imagination ran wild, filling in every possibility. She shook her head. She didn't want to scare herself before even knowing. The sound of a car pulling into the driveway snapped her attention. She rushed to the window. Daniel. He got out slowly, carrying a small bag. His posture was tight, tense, like he had walked miles without resting. Emma's heart skipped. She wanted to run outside, ask him questions, demand answers, but instead she took a breath, letting him decide how much to share. Daniel knocked lightly. When Emma opened the door, he hesitated, his eyes scanning her face for permission to step inside. "Good morning," she said softly. "Morning," he replied. His voice sounded tired but calmer than last night. "Can I come in?" Emma stepped aside. He entered slowly, careful not to disturb anything, as if her house was a fragile space he feared breaking. I didn't mean to leave so abruptly last night," he said, finally. "It wasn't you, He trailed off, looking out the window, then back at her. Emma nodded. "I understand. You don't have to explain if you're not ready." He took a deep breath. "No, I want to. I need to. I've been carrying something for a long time. Moving here, it was my chance to start over. But some things don't just disappear." He set the bag on the counter and pulled out a stack of papers. "These are letters," he explained. "Letters I never sent. From someone I left behind. Someone I still think about sometimes, even though I shouldn't." Emma looked at him, her curiosity mixed with concern. "And you brought them here? To show me?" Daniel shrugged. "Not to show, to acknowledge. I've never admitted it aloud, not even to myself fully." Emma felt a strange, intimate trust forming between them. She didn't know why he chose her, why he led her into this vulnerable corner of his life. But she knew without a doubt that he trusted her. They sat together at the table. Daniel's voice was low but steady now, as he read bits of the letters aloud. Each one carried raw emotion, regret, longing, love lost. Emma felt the weight of his past settle around her, heavy but not oppressive. She didn't interrupt. She only listened, letting him speak, letting him unburden himself in a way he hadn't done in years. When he paused, looking down at his hands, Emma reached across the table and placed hers over his. "You've been carrying this alone for too long," she said gently. "You don't have to anymore." Daniel looked at her, surprise flickering in his eyes. Then, slowly, a small, grateful smile appeared. "I don't know why I feel like I can tell you," he admitted. "Because sometimes, when someone finally listens, it changes everything," she replied. The tension in the room shifted. It wasn't heavy anymore. It was quiet and warm, a space between two people who had met not by accident but by fate. Emma realized her plans from last night to keep dinner casual, to maintain distance, had already changed. They didn't matter anymore. They talked about other things then. Work, books, favorite movies, music that stayed with them long after the song ended. Each small detail wove them closer together, as if the world outside had disappeared entirely, leaving only this fragile, perfect moment. Daniel laughed at one story Emma told about a mix-up at the library. And she laughed too, the sound lighter than she had felt in months. For a brief moment, it was normal, just two neighbors sharing a simple meal and conversation. But Emma knew normal wasn't coming back. This was something else, something new. Hours passed and the sunlight began to fade. Daniel glanced at the clock, tension creeping back into his shoulders. "I should probably go," he said reluctantly. Emma felt a pang. She didn't want him to leave, not yet. "You don't have to," she said. "Stay a little longer. You can leave when you feel ready." Daniel shook his head, smiling faintly. "I don't want to overstay, but I also don't want to leave. This being here, it feels right." Emma's heart fluttered. She realized she wanted the same thing. But she also knew boundaries mattered. They were strangers in many ways, yet not strangers at all. He leaned back in the chair, hands folded, eyes searching hers. "I feel like I've met you before somewhere else. Or maybe I've been waiting to meet someone like you for a long time." Emma's chest tightened. She wanted to tell him the same thing that she felt it too. A connection she couldn't explain. But words faltered. Sometimes silence spoke louder. A knock at the door startled them. Emma glanced at the hallway and saw the mail carrier dropping off letters. Daniel stood, brushing invisible dust from his pants. "Mail," he said lightly, trying to hide the tension that had returned. Emma smiled. "Seems like life keeps moving even when we don't want it to." Daniel nodded. Yeah, life doesn't wait. And that was true. Outside, the sun was dipping low, casting long shadows across the street. Inside, the space between them had shifted again, heavier, more intimate, filled with unspoken questions. As he prepared to leave, Daniel paused at the doorway. He looked at Emma as if deciding whether to say something he might regret. Then he spoke, quiet but deliberate. "I want to see you again. Not just for dinner, not just for a visit. I want to know you. Really know you." Emma's heart surged. She wanted to say yes immediately, to invite him in and never let him go. But she held herself back, remembering the caution that life had taught her. "I'd like that," she said softly. "I want that too." His smile this time was unguarded, warm, the kind that could light up even the coldest night. "Then I'll call," he said. He left, closing the door gently behind him. Emma watched the small figure disappear down the street, her mind and heart racing. Alone, she leaned against the door, letting out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. For the first time in months, maybe years, she felt something fragile but real. Hope that life could surprise her. Hope that she could let someone in without fear. Hope that she and Daniel could start something slowly, carefully. Honestly, she knew there were challenges ahead. His past wouldn't disappear overnight, and her heart had its own scars. But the moment felt important. Momentous, even. They were two people who had stumbled into each other's lives at the right time. Both carrying burdens, both yearning for connection, and for now. That was enough. The evening air turned cool, brushing through the open window. Emma closed her eyes and imagined Daniel walking down the street, not as a stranger, not as a neighbor, but as someone who could become Mara, a person who might change her life forever. She knew the story wasn't over. The unanswered questions, the secrets he hadn't fully shared. The moments they hadn't lived together yet, they all waited. But for the first time, Emma felt ready. She was ready to take the next step. Ready to let life surprise her. Ready to welcome Daniel not just as a neighbor, but as someone who might stay. And deep down, she suspected he felt the same way. As night settled, Emma looked out at the street, quiet and still. The maple leaves swayed in the breeze, and somewhere far down the road, Daniel's silhouette disappeared into the shadows. Yet the connection remained. Fragile, tentative, and an electric something unspoken but undeniable. A bond forming in the softest of ways between two people who had met at exactly the right moment in life. Emma smiled. A slow, peaceful smile. Tomorrow might bring questions. Challenges, maybe even heartbreak. But tonight, there was only this warmth, understanding, and the thrilling uncertainty of what could come next. And for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel afraid because something had begun, something real, something emotional, and something that might just change everything.